Paul, as the guest, you go first. The most disgusting and revolting thing you just witnessed was what?
Well, you said at the top of the hour that I was back by popular demand. I think this might be the last time that happens, but I actually want to make a more macro commentary on these montages. So I've got a really bold take for you this week, Steve. I genuinely believe Joe Biden getting reelected will actually be better for the long-term health of the conservative movement than if Trump wins this November. And I did say the conservative movement and not MAGA because I do believe they are different. But I have been thinking about what issues are most often featured in these montages, and whether it's introducing children to transgenderism and critical race theory, or the fallout from COVID and the lack of accountability for big pharma, or the declining influence and credibility of the church in America. All of these things either took their initial foothold or dramatically accelerated because Trump has provided the most effective smokescreen imaginable for the excesses of the far left. And to me, it's laughable when I hear his supporters claiming he's exposing all of this and Americans are finally waking up, because in reality, he created the diversion that allowed this to flourish in the first place. And I know his supporters like to be dismissive and reduce his detractors to people just complaining about mean tweets. But if you step back and honestly assess the situation, his complete lack of impulse control, messaging discipline, and any actual knowledge of how the mechanics of government work, he was the best thing that could ever happen for the far left. Aside from the Paul Ryan tax reform, nearly everything he accomplished domestically that was seen as a conservative victory was done through executive action, and it was immediately overturned as soon as Biden took office. He was constantly distracted and consumed with petty grievances, lashing out, settling scores, creating controversies, and because of this, his crude and vulgar style for the apolitical, the suburban moderates, the politically disengaged, anything seen as opposition to him was immediately given some benefit of the doubt, or even seen as being righteous. When he attempted to act on cultural war issues, the transgender military ban or the Muslim ban, both of which, for the record, I disagreed with, but when he attempted to do these things, he was so grossly underprepared and ill-advised to actually execute on them that they immediately fell apart. And because this isn't a Ron DeSantis who is well-studied and thoughtful in how he carries out a plan, it's just impulsive, half-baked, haphazard nonsense that goes nowhere and creates sympathy for his opposition. And there is such a culture of cowardice among the rank-and-file GOP who are just terrified of him and desperate for his endorsement that basic principles of conservatism don't even matter anymore. Spending, the debt, entitlement reform. Trump wants to ignore them, so we'll ignore them. He wants to throw pro-lifers under the bus and blame them for the midterm losses of stellar candidates like Mehmet Oz and Herschel Walker. I guess that's fine, too. His movement will never be called to galvanize and hold Big Pharma accountable because Trump says Operation Warp Speed was one of his greatest accomplishments. And we cannot threaten Trump's fragile ego, Steve. And why would the church, which many rightly or wrongly see as a conservative institution, remain credible in terms of its moral leadership when the conservative cultural movement is led by a man who is a known pathological liar, who cheats on his wife with porn stars and claims he has never asked God for forgiveness? How can conservatism thrive under those conditions, Steve? So I really do think the longer Trump remains the leader of this movement, the easier it will remain for you, what you call the cultural rot, to continue unopposed. And I do think Biden winning re-election will force conservatives to finally turn the page on Trump and hopefully rediscover some actual principles rather than just this unwavering allegiance to a man who believes in nothing other than himself.